All right, Bill Walsh, Center of the American Experiment. I'm here with our president, John Hinderaker. We are going to talk about this year's summer tour. We've kind of gotten this habit of doing summer tours. Last year we did Off the Cliff, how the legislature took Minnesotans off the cliff with that policy agenda. This year we're doing something a little different, John. It's false promises, how progressive policies have betrayed Minnesota's youth. What was our premise here?
So we thought it would be interesting this year to do a program, do a tour that focuses on young people in Minnesota. And we've defined that arbitrarily 18 to 34. And so we thought, let's find out what young people in Minnesota are thinking. And we went to our pollster, Meeting Street Insights, and we said, would it be feasible to do a full poll in Minnesota just of young people? And they said, yeah, we can do that. Mostly going to be cell phones. So they did. And the results of that poll are absolutely stunning. What they show is a crisis of pessimism among young people in Minnesota. One of the questions that we asked is, do you think your generation is better off than your parents' generation economically, the same, or worse off? 90% of young people in Minnesota say their generation is worse off than their parents' generation. Then we asked, well, what about the next generation after yours? Do you think they're going to be better off, worse off, or the same? 68% said they think the next generation will be even worse off. And what that tells us, Bill, is that young people in Minnesota believe that they are living in an age of decline, that things are going downhill, that the future is not bright, that their generation doesn't have a good shot at success. These are absolutely stunning findings. Our pollster said when he saw that 90% think their generation is worse off, he said, you can't get 90% of the people to agree on anything.
Yeah, despite what Tim Walz tells us constantly, how Minnesota's best in the nation for this and best in the nation for that. But the data shows, both the poll and the data, and this presentation is full of data points about the issues that we're going to go through in the poll. And we did something I think a little unique. We did a couple of focus groups with young people. So there's actual video clips of real people, real young people, talking about how not just the data from the poll that says they're concerned about buying a house, 83%, by the way, concerned about being able to afford to buy a house. But then here's a young couple talking about the challenges they're facing. So the presentation is kind of polling. It's video from real young people. It's data and facts. And then the last piece is really connecting it to policy, because the whole point is here is not how you feel, is also the result of progressive policies over the course of time in Minnesota, and that we're trying to make that connection for people.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's talk about the issue that you just mentioned, because
Okay.
our presentation goes through a number of issues and connects these various dots. So number one, we asked young people, what are your concerns? Are you concerned about, gave them a whole long list, and it's really interesting. It's not global warming. You know, they're not worried about getting an abortion. It's none of that kind of stuff. Their concerns are economic.
It's money.
And they are very realistic. They're not wrong. They're right about these issues. So 83% of young people in our poll said they are concerned about being able to afford to buy a house. That's a stunning number, 83%. But again, there's a reason for that. Home prices in the Twin Cities metro area have skyrocketed. 1990, median home price was $73,700. Think about that. Today, median home price, $369,000. And one of the things that we see in the presentation is that Minneapolis has one of the least affordable housing markets of any Midwestern city, one of the least affordable markets. And so there's a number of reasons for that. But one of the things that, again, we talk about in the presentation is the impact of needless regulations at the state and local level, but especially the state level, needless regulations on home building. So we have the Met Council artificially shrinking the land area in which you can develop housing in the Twin Cities.
The MUSA line.
The MUSA line, that's a big problem. And then you've got all of these regulations and code provisions and so on that kick in when you try to build a house in Minnesota. And there's stunning information here that comes from a builder who builds houses in Minnesota, also in Wisconsin. And what he says is he can build the same house, same design, same house, same materials, same builder. He can build it on the west bank of the St. Croix River in Minnesota. He can build the same house on the east bank in Hudson, Wisconsin. The Minnesota house costs $47,000 more than the Wisconsin house. $47,000 more. So yes, inflation is a problem nationwide. Affording a house is an issue for young people nationwide. But in Minnesota, we go out of our way to make it harder for our young people to thrive. And that's why, Bill, young people are leaving the state of Minnesota in droves. One of the biggest demographics of outflow of people from Minnesota is young people. And when you see our presentation, you will understand why that is.
Yeah, so you just did housing. We're going to do the same thing in the presentation with data and polling for childcare, for energy, for education, for healthcare, for public safety. And then we finish with kind of an economic picture of jobs in the economy, GDP growth, tons of information on that. Taxes, of course, is the big finish. And then, like you say, the migration picture. So that's a little sneak peek into the summer tour, False Promises Tour. You can go to americanexperiment.org/events. If you live in Minnesota, we will be coming to a neighborhood near you. There's an event all through the course of July in the Twin Cities and around the state. So check us out, americanexperiment.org, and join us for one of these the information-filled events.